Hi, it's you and Ellery here making bonsai in Australia, and in this video I'm going to be doing some work on my Serissa pre-bonsai. So I really want to go over a number of considerations that you can make to make sure that you're giving your Serissas the appropriate care that they need, and also a few different styling options given I've got quite a few different small Serissas that I planted in this pot over a year ago, and they're starting to, kind of want to take them out of this pot, see what I can start to do with them. I also have a few other Serissas that I've planted in the same video I did these on over a year ago, so I'll give a brief update on some of those as well. Look, I've been told before that they like to, that they don't like to be moved around a fair bit, that they like to have a pretty consistent kind of environment, but I've had a lot of success so far with the Serissas that I do have. So look, the main basic things that you need to be concerned about with Serissas, they don't like cold, so if you're in a cold climate where it does get below, even below 10 degrees Celsius, you really do want to be making sure that you're bringing them in. So overnight here where I am, it does get quite cold. So I will be looking at options to overwinter these, similar to what I'll be doing with some of my other tropicals, such as my ficuses. So I'll update as I move closer to winter, but it's the middle of summer now, so we'll go into something that's a little bit more relevant. Look, they don't like to be overwatered, yet they definitely like to be consistently watered, and they do not want to have the soil dry out completely. So you do want to make sure that you are watering them quite consistently, but not, you want to also be making sure they have appropriate drainage. What I've also found works best for me, at least with Serissa, is using quite a standard kind of a potting mix, so quite soily, as opposed to my standard potting mix that I use for a lot of my other bonsai. So yeah, today I'll be putting them with standard kind of potting mix. If anything, probably a little bit of a mixture of a little bit of my normal kind of bonsai soil mix, put in with your standard. Now, in terms of sunlight as well, so they do like quite a bit of sunlight. So ideally, put them out in sunlight. The more water you're giving them, the more sunlight, the better as well. So these I've had out in just direct sunlight through the whole day, and they've been growing quite well. I do have another one that I've got, which I've left in my yard for now, which is actually growing quite vigorous and quite strong. But it's also growing right next to one of my royal poincianas, and that happens to have taken off quite well. So it's a little bit covered at the moment. I'll give you a picture just so you can have a look at it. But yeah, it's a little bit covered, so it's not getting the sunlight it needs, but because it's also growing into the soil, the roots have already grown into the soil, it's doing really well, and it's got a good few shoots that are coming up and trying to poke out into the sunlight. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to leave that and let it grow. But this one in particular, it's got a really interesting kind of canopy to it. So it kind of started arching out on either side, and I've pruned it back a little bit. So I'm really keen to see how it goes as more of kind of like a very broad spread out, kind of like an African forest kind of style tree. So very interested to see how that turns out in the future. All right, so I'm going to start taking this out of its pot. So yeah, look, you can normally, you can do a moderate amount of root pruning, but I've had a lot of, all of these originated from a plant that was taken out of my ex's parents' yard. So yeah, I had a lot of success with quite severe root pruning on them, given there weren't many roots to begin with. But yeah, typically you're not meant to do like huge root prunings on these, but you can get away with very drastic prunings up above. So yeah, and normally you'd also be doing your repotting and stuff, like ideally at the start of spring, as with most things. But yeah, I've not had any issues so far, so I'm going ahead, and I'll just be making sure that I do kind of monitor the environment that I've got it in. I don't want to have it in the most sunlight, or if I do, I'm going to be watering it quite a lot just to make sure it heals properly. Getting rid of this moss at the top. So this one, when I originally did it, it had, I was quite happy with the trunk line and kind of, where bits and pieces were going, but some of some of the thicker part of the trunk had died back, just because, yeah, it was pulled out as a weed from the garden. So it's got that quite interesting kind of trunk there, which was one of the reasons I was so kind of keen about this to begin with. So definitely going to try and use that, but yeah, there's not a huge amount of, like, especially thick nabari coming out, and you know, there's a lot of really thin roots here, and I don't recall there really being many thick ones coming out from this. So I'm going to try and keep as much of this as I can. What I'll probably do is I'll just get rid of some of the bottom of this root ball, just to try and make sure that these roots grows out into a lot more of the kind of a root plane that I'll be using in future, so that hopefully I can keep the majority of the root mass that I keep today as I go forward. So yeah, I'm just gonna find a pot for this and repot it. Now, as this one is actually quite large, I want to get growing a lot thicker, so I'm going to put it in a fairly large style pot, and I'm just using the same soil. Very organic mix, which would be perfect for this tree. Right, and just gonna cut this just to prune those roots back. Now, in terms of front, I could really go with a couple options. So there's either that option, and this option is a front. It does look quite good, actually. I mean, there's a lot of branching that's kind of coming out in the front, but it's also, you know, there's that nice start of a root flare there. You can see the nice movement from these other roots here on the side. The only problem with that as a front is that some of the branching gets a little bit in the way. Just of the kind of view of what you want to be looking at, but I'm not too fussed with that. I might actually plant it a little bit offset from the center, just given that these branches are kind of coming out that way, just so it doesn't look weird. Now I'm about to put the moss back on, so I'm just going to give it a light bit of watering, and then I'll put that back on. Alright, so just a little bit of water just to moisten the top of that soil that the moss is going to be going on. Then just starting to put it back on. So just packing it down firmly just to make sure those roots really get back into the soil. Just to try and cover, or where possible, cover roots that are closer to the surface of the soil, just to really make sure that they stay healthy and don't dry out. Given there's not a strong nabari to speak of, just covering those little fine roots with this moss is really going to help that nabari form in years to come. Now there's a branch there that drops down. It actually broke a little while ago, can't remember exactly when, but I accidentally broke it, and yeah, it's survived, but it's coming down and then moving out weird, and look, it's, I don't know, there's plenty of other branches going to bud back in appropriate locations. Don't think this one's going to be too healthy, so get rid of that. It's also blocking the front of the tree. Now all these branches coming out this way are perfect. I really like them coming out there, but I want to start forming a bit of a pad out this direction, so I'm going to start getting rid of all of these ones that are just going crazy directions. Yeah, I want to just keep using this direction coming out this way, so get rid of this other one that's shooting up and in towards the trunk. Cool, and if anything, I'll just prune them into profile a little bit. This part here, ideally I'd have something, you know, kind of coming out of that side of this trunk. It's weird having the root kind of, you know, these two both kind of obstruct that root, which isn't ideal, but I do want to still kind of have something coming out from this area. So I might actually keep both of these just because they're both quite small at this stage, just to get a little bit more vigor coming out of that root. Keep this, you know, it's quite interesting having this root piece coming out the side. So I want to keep that alive. So I'll keep those, hopefully get a bit more vigor, move around in better directions with time. And the only other real things kind of, you know, poking out in front of the front in any way are right in the front. So this main trunk line here, there are 2 shoots coming out right from the front, which, you know, is not ideal. Yeah, and if they were coming from the back, then I could quite easily kind of, you know, move shit around and put them into other areas, kind of, you know, so that it fills out the tree a little bit more. But as they're just coming out in the front, and I've got this as a leader, so I've got this here which is coming out this direction. I could move those out that way in future. So yeah, I really don't need these. So get rid of both of them, which means there's now a better view from the front of the trunk anyway. And what I might actually do, rather than keeping these both alive, what I might do is prune them back, just so that hopefully I'll get some ramification coming out and some branching that kind of sweeps out further towards the sides and in direction that I kind of want. So keep them alive, just pruning them back a bit. Now up the top here, so this little branch there, just moving inside, just moving back in towards the, you know, this other branch here, which didn't need. Branch there, just kind of coming out, you know, not really needed. I could remove this entirely. It is coming, yeah, I might actually remove it entirely. It's coming out, you know, from the inside, so inside between these 2 branches, and then it's coming out straight towards the viewer. So, you know, not really what you want. Now up here is where I'm going to start developing some pads. Already got started a little bit of a pad up here for me. There's a branch there that, oh yeah, that's been broken in the past, and another one that's been pushed down but survived, so get rid of that. Don't need branches that are trying to go into the soil. Yeah, so just trying to clean up these little pads here, make them, you know, develop a bit thicker in future. So yeah, where all the pads are growing, just pruning them, the branches into profile so there's not too many straight long leggy bits, so it gets a lot more ramification with time. It'd be interesting to see how it goes with all of these bits coming up here whilst I've got this down below, but if anything it's just going to you know, develop better taper. So now this little tiny bit, I'm actually going to leave that just to continue as a leader. See how it goes with time. And then I've got another branch here which realistically I don't need all of it, but I'm going to keep it, and it's the first time putting this into a real bonsai pot. It's not even a real bonsai pot, it's a plastic training pot, but you get what I mean. So I'm not too sure as to what exactly I'm going to keep this with time, but yeah, I mean this branch that's kind of poking out, not really sure if that's needed. It'd be good to have it if I decide to remove this with time. But yeah, we're just going to have to see. Like I might even end up having this as more of a layered branch pad out here. To that effect. I'm going to prune it back now. Yeah, so essentially if this starts forming into a little bit of a pad out here, then this could, yeah, essentially be a nice additional kind of pad coming out this side, which means that I probably don't want the top part of it there. I can probably prune that back. Yeah, just because there's not really enough room between those two layers. It's a bit too crowded. So yeah, it's just cutting that so that it starts to form out in that way, and then hopefully with time I'll get some branches kind of moving out this way, and fill it out a little bit more on this side. So yeah, so there's the start of this particular Serissa. So yeah, quite some interesting kind of root characteristics and trunk characteristics at the moment, and yeah, really just keen to see how this develops in the next couple of years. So look, I did say I was going to be doing these as well in this video, so I'll cover those in a part 2 video. So yeah, look, I hope you enjoyed this video or took something from it. If you have, then please just hit that like button, as it really helps support my channel. And if you have anything that you would like me to cover in future videos, please just leave a comment, and otherwise I'll speak to you later. Thank you. Bye.